Happy birthday, Bianca! Desmond Whitfield's voice rose above the music as he lifted his champagne glass. The room erupted in applause. Happy birthday! Cheers! To Bianca! Bianca Monroe stood beside the enormous birthday cake, smiling as her husband walked toward her. The ballroom of the Whitfield estate was filled with nearly 100 guests. Family members, close friends, business associates, and several of Desmond's wealthy friends. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead. A live band played softly near the far end of the room. Waiters moved between tables carrying champagne and appetizers. Everything about the evening looked perfect. Bianca had spent the entire night believing this was a celebration of her marriage as much as her birthday. Then Desmond walked toward her holding a small cream-colored envelope. Her smile widened. "What is that?" Desmond smiled. "A birthday present." Several guests noticed the envelope. Bianca laughed. "You already gave me flowers." "I know." "And the necklace?" "I know." "So what could possibly be in there?" Desmond stopped directly in front of her. "Open it." There was something strange about his voice. It wasn't warm. It wasn't playful. It was controlled. Almost rehearsed. Bianca glanced around. Her mother was smiling from across the room. Her best friend Rachel was holding up her phone, preparing to record the moment. Even Desmond's parents were watching. Bianca laughed nervously. "You're making me nervous." "Just open it." She took the envelope. The room seemed to grow quieter. Bianca carefully broke the seal. She pulled out several sheets of paper. At first, she didn't understand what she was looking at. Then her eyes reached the heading, "Petition for Dissolution of Marriage." Her smile vanished. Her fingers froze. She looked at the page again, then at Desmond, then back at the paper. "Desmond!" He took a slow sip of champagne. Bianca's voice trembled. "What is this?" Desmond didn't answer. "Desmond, what does this mean?" The conversations around the room began dying away. People were staring. Rachel slowly lowered her phone. Bianca's mother stood up. "Bianca?" Bianca looked at her husband. "You're giving me divorce papers?" Desmond nodded. "In front of everyone?" His expression remained strangely calm. "I thought it was better this way." A stunned silence fell across the ballroom. Bianca looked around at the people watching her, her birthday guests, her family, her friends. Everyone had just witnessed her husband hand her divorce papers as though they were a birthday gift. Her eyes filled with tears. "Today?" Desmond shrugged. "It's your birthday." Bianca let out a broken laugh. "You're right, it is." She looked down at the papers. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of memories, 7 years of believing this man was her home. And now he had chosen this moment to end everything. "Why?" Desmond finally looked directly at her. "Because I don't love you anymore." A murmur moved through the room. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Bianca's lips parted. "Is there someone else?" Desmond hesitated. That single hesitation answered her. Bianca slowly nodded. She looked at the envelope, then at the cake, then at the hundreds of people staring at her. For a moment, everyone expected Bianca to break down. Instead, she wiped away one tear, then another, and something unexpected happened. She smiled, not happily, calmly. Desmond frowned. "What?" Bianca carefully folded the divorce papers and placed them back inside the envelope. "Thank you." Desmond blinked. "For what?" Bianca looked him straight in the eye. "For finally making this easy." The room went completely silent. Desmond's smile disappeared. "What does that mean?" Bianca turned toward her guests. "I think the birthday party is over." She picked up her purse, then walked past him. Desmond grabbed her wrist. "Bianca, where are you going?" She looked down at his hand. "Home." "This is your home." Bianca looked into his eyes. "No, Desmond." She gently pulled her hand away. It was. Then she walked through the ballroom doors. But Desmond didn't know something. 3 days earlier, Bianca had discovered a secret about him. A secret that made those divorce papers far more dangerous than he realized. Before we go deeper into this case, Take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Because Desmond thought he had just humiliated his wife in front of everyone. He had no idea he had just given Bianca the freedom to expose everything he had been hiding. 7 years earlier, Bianca Monroe had met Desmond Whitfield at a charity auction in Manhattan. It was a completely different Desmond. He was charming, funny, confident without being arrogant. And when Bianca accidentally spilled sparkling water on his jacket, he laughed instead of getting angry. "You're going to have to marry me now," he joked. Bianca laughed. "That's a little dramatic. I'm a businessman. I always negotiate aggressively." She remembered that moment for years. Within months, they were inseparable. Desmond proposed during a weekend trip to Napa Valley. Bianca said yes. A year later, they were married. Their wedding had been beautiful. Their first years together were even better. Desmond was building his real estate empire. Bianca was working in finance. She supported his ambitions without losing her own identity. When Desmond's first major project ran into financial trouble, Bianca stood beside him. She helped him review contracts. She introduced him to people in her professional network. And when he nearly lost everything, she quietly used money from her personal investment account to help stabilize the company. Desmond promised her he would never forget what she had done. For a while, he didn't. Then success changed him. The small company became a major development firm. The modest apartment became a penthouse. Business dinners became private clubs. Private clubs became international trips. And Bianca slowly became less important in his world. At first, she blamed herself. Maybe she wasn't spending enough time with him. Maybe she wasn't adventurous enough. Maybe she was becoming boring. Then Desmond started coming home late. He began taking calls outside. His phone was suddenly always face down. His passwords changed. And there was a woman named Celeste. Celeste was Desmond's executive assistant. Beautiful. Ambitious. Always around. Bianca initially trusted her husband. Until one afternoon. Desmond had left his phone on the kitchen counter. A message appeared. "Can we finally tell her?" Bianca froze. Before she could move, another message appeared. "Not yet. I'm handling it." Bianca's heart began pounding. She didn't touch the phone. She didn't confront him. She simply walked away. That evening, Desmond came home. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm tired." He kissed her forehead. Bianca forced a smile. But something inside her had changed. She began watching. Not obsessively, carefully. She noticed that Desmond had started locking documents in his office. She noticed unfamiliar transfers in their financial records. She noticed that he had begun asking strange questions about her inheritance. "How much did your father leave you again?" Bianca looked at him. "Why?" "I'm just curious," she smiled. "Not curious enough to remember?" Desmond laughed, but Bianca noticed the tension behind his eyes. Then, 3 days before her birthday, she found a folder in his office. Inside were documents related to several of his newest developments. Bianca read through them. Then she froze. Her name appeared on a corporate guarantee. She had never signed it. She checked another document. Her signature again. Forged. Her heart raced. Someone had been using her identity to secure Desmond's business loans. She photographed every page, then quietly contacted an attorney. She didn't tell Desmond. Not yet. She needed to know how deep the betrayal went. Bianca chose silence, and that decision would change everything. The next morning, Bianca sat across from her attorney. He reviewed the documents carefully. Then he looked up. "Bianca, this is serious." "How serious?" "Your husband has used your name to secure several corporate guarantees." "But I never signed them." "I know." "Then someone forged your signature." Bianca's stomach tightened. "Can we prove it?" "Yes." Her attorney opened another file. "There is something else." He showed her several financial records. Desmond's company had millions of dollars in outstanding debt. The business looked successful from the outside, but internally, it was struggling. Several major developments had gone over budget. Investors were demanding returns. Banks were tightening credit. Desmond needed access to Bianca's assets, and that explained his sudden interest in her inheritance. Bianca's father had left her a substantial investment portfolio. Desmond knew about it. What he didn't know was that Bianca had never touched the majority of it. It had continued growing quietly. Her attorney gave her the current valuation. Bianca stared at the number. It was worth far more than she had imagined. Desmond doesn't know? No. Bianca slowly leaned back. So he thinks I'm financially dependent on him? Apparently. She almost laughed. Then her attorney placed another document on the table. This is where it gets more complicated. Bianca looked down. The document showed money moving between one of Desmond's companies and another company. The second company belonged to Celeste. Bianca stared at the name. Celeste? Her attorney nodded. Your husband's assistant. Bianca felt sick. The affair wasn't the only secret. Desmond had been moving company money through businesses connected to Celeste. And now everything made sense. The expensive gifts, the strange questions about her inheritance, the sudden desire for divorce. Desmond didn't simply want to leave Bianca. He wanted to separate himself from her before his financial problems became impossible to hide. And he wanted access to her money before she realized what was happening. Bianca closed the file. What should I do? Do you want to confront him? Bianca thought about the birthday party, the hundreds of people who would be there. Then she shook her head. No. Why? Because I want to see what he does. Her attorney frowned. Bianca. He thinks I'm powerless. She looked at him. Let him. 3 days later, Bianca's birthday arrived. The Whitfield estate was transformed. Flowers covered the entrance. A string quartet played near the staircase. Servers carried trays of champagne. Family members arrived from different states. Friends came dressed in formal evening clothes. Business associates filled the ballroom. Bianca wore a deep blue gown. She looked radiant. She had no idea that her husband had already decided how the evening would end. Across the room, Desmond stood beside Celeste. They weren't touching, but Bianca noticed the way they looked at each other. Celeste smiled. Desmond nodded. They thought they had won. A few minutes later, Desmond stepped onto the small stage. Everyone, may I have your attention? The room quieted. Desmond smiled. Tonight isn't just about celebrating Bianca's birthday. Bianca looked at him. It is also about celebrating the 7 years we've shared together. Guests applauded. Bianca smiled. For one brief moment, she wondered if perhaps she had been wrong. Maybe Desmond really did love her. Maybe the strange behavior had another explanation. Then he stepped down from the stage. He walked toward her and handed her the envelope. Happy birthday, Bianca. She opened it, divorce papers, in front of everyone. The room went silent. Bianca looked at Desmond. He looked almost satisfied, as though he had just delivered a brilliant surprise. Why would you do this here? Because I wanted to be honest. You could have told me privately. I didn't want a scene later. Bianca stared at him. A scene? He nodded. You've always been emotional. A few guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Bianca felt the humiliation burning through her. But she didn't scream. She didn't slap him. She didn't beg. She simply looked at him. Then at Celeste. Celeste's expression revealed everything. Bianca smiled faintly. So it's her. Celeste looked away. Desmond's jaw tightened. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Bianca nodded. You're right. She looked around the room. I'm done. Then she walked away. Behind her, whispers exploded. Desmond expected Bianca to come back. She didn't. And that was the first thing he got wrong. The next morning, Desmond woke up expecting dozens of messages. There were none from Bianca. Instead, his attorney called. We received documents from Bianca's lawyer. Desmond sat up. What documents? Her response to the divorce. Is she fighting it? No. Desmond smiled. Good. She agreed to the divorce. Then what's the problem? His attorney paused. She also submitted evidence concerning the forged signatures. Desmond's smile disappeared. What? She has copies of the documents. Desmond stood. How? I don't know. His attorney continued. And there are financial records connecting your company to Celeste's businesses. Desmond's face went pale. Stop. We need to talk immediately. Desmond hung up. He called Bianca. She answered on the third ring. Hello? You knew. Bianca was silent. You knew about the documents? Yes. You knew about the money? Yes. You knew about Celeste? Bianca paused. Yes. Desmond sat down. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to know how much of my husband was left. His throat tightened. Bianca, you embarrassed me in front of everyone I care about. I thought... No. Her voice was calm. You thought I would cry. Silence. You thought I would beg. Desmond couldn't answer. You thought because I loved you, I couldn't survive without you. Bianca's voice softened. That was your biggest mistake. Desmond closed his eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. She ended the call. Then the investigation began. Banks froze several accounts. Investors demanded explanations. Auditors discovered suspicious transfers. And when investigators questioned Celeste, she panicked. She blamed Desmond. Desmond blamed Celeste. Their secret partnership collapsed overnight. The same woman Desmond had chosen over Bianca became the person accusing him of financial misconduct. His company began losing millions. And the man who had humiliated his wife in front of an entire ballroom suddenly became the one everyone was talking about. Bianca chose something Desmond never expected. She didn't take revenge. She chose freedom. The divorce was finalized several months later. Bianca received everything she was legally entitled to, but she refused to fight for more than that. Her attorney was surprised. You could take a much larger settlement. I know. Then why not? Bianca looked at him. Because I don't want to spend another year fighting over a man I already left behind. She walked away from the marriage with her dignity intact. Then she did something even more unexpected. She moved. She left the Whitfield estate. She left the city. And she began building a life that had nothing to do with Desmond. She opened her own investment firm. She invested in businesses owned by women. She created financial education programs. And she began speaking publicly about financial independence. Meanwhile, Desmond lost control of his company. His penthouse was sold. His mansion was sold. His luxury cars disappeared. The people who once surrounded him stopped answering his calls. Celeste was investigated for her role in the financial scheme. Desmond spent months trying to repair his reputation. But there was one thing he couldn't repair: his marriage. One evening, he sat alone in a small apartment. He opened his phone. Bianca's contact was still there. He typed, "I'm sorry." He stared at it, deleted it. He typed, "I miss you." Deleted that too. Finally, he wrote, "You were the only person who loved me before I became successful." He stared at the words, then put the phone down, because he finally understood something. An apology didn't give him the right to return. He had made his choice. Now Bianca had made hers. 1 year later, Bianca celebrated her birthday again. But everything was different. There was no ballroom, no hundreds of guests, no husband standing beside her with a hidden agenda, no envelope. Instead, there were a few close friends. Rachel brought the cake. Bianca's mother brought flowers. The evening was simple, warm, real. As everyone sang happy birthday, Bianca looked around the room. Her eyes filled with tears. Rachel noticed. "You okay?" Bianca smiled. "I'm happy." Rachel hugged her. "Do you ever think about what happened last year?" Bianca looked at the candles. "Sometimes. What do you remember?" Bianca was quiet for a moment. "I remember thinking Desmond had ruined my birthday." "And now?" Bianca smiled. "Now I realize he gave me the best birthday gift he never intended to give me." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "What gift?" "Freedom." Across the city, Desmond remembered her birthday too. He remembered the ballroom, the guests, The envelope. The way Bianca had looked at him. He remembered thinking he was the one in control. Now he understood how wrong he had been. He had thought divorce would make him free. Instead, it had stripped away everything he had taken for granted. His wealth, his reputation, his marriage, and the trust of the woman who had stood beside him when he had nothing. But Bianca didn't celebrate his downfall. She didn't hate him. She simply stopped caring what happened to him. And that was the one thing Desmond couldn't change. 2 years after that terrible birthday, Bianca stood on a stage in front of hundreds of women. She had been invited to speak at a financial independence conference. The room was silent as she stepped toward the microphone. "I used to think losing my marriage meant losing my future," she said. The room was silent. "Then I realized something." She smiled. "Sometimes the person who walks away from you is accidentally opening the door to the life you were too afraid to choose." The audience applauded. "Desmond thought he was giving me divorce papers." Bianca paused. "But he actually gave me freedom." She looked across the room. "Never allow someone else's decision to convince you that your life is over." Her voice grew stronger. "Sometimes an ending is simply the beginning of the life you were meant to live." And that was the truth Desmond never expected. He thought he was giving Bianca a divorce. Instead, he gave her a second chance at herself. If Bianca's story touched you, like this video, subscribe to Underestimated Saga and share your thoughts below. Would you have walked away like Bianca or fought for the marriage? Thank you for watching, and remember, the person who underestimates you today may be the same person who regrets losing you tomorrow.